Hello there and welcome to another Tyrrell's Classic workshop. This time round we're talking about, we almost always have at least one Lamborghini Miura in the workshop from wherever, but on this occasion, by kind permission of the owner, the car will actually be on our stand at the National Exhibition Centre Classic Car Show coming up between the 7th and the 9th of November. I'm so happy that they've agreed to loan us the car. It's a great honour for this car to be on display. We did a complete engine and gearbox rebuild of the car a while back. This is a very well-known car in the UK. It's appeared at a lot of events, and I'm super happy that the organisers have allowed us to do this. So without further ado, let's have a recap of the restoration of the powertrain on that amazing Lamborghini Miura. It was burning a bit of oil and producing blue smoke. So we've done the initial strip down of the engine, and I'm going to be having a look at some of the components, the sort of wear and tear or not, as the case may be. Obviously there's something not right because it is burning oil. So we're going to be having a look into that and just see what the next course of action is following on from that. Like all of these old engines with no electronic rev limiters and software for this and software for that, they are open to abuse, these engines, and unfortunately a lot of the buying public being able to afford one of these cars and being able to drive it in some way, shape or other sometimes meant that people were only really skilled at destroying valuable machinery. But there is the odd exception where the car has been used and looked after properly, and this car, I'm happy to say, definitely falls into that category. There are many things that can go wrong with these engines. As I say, people can over-rev them from cold, they can do all sorts of things. What I'm going to do now, we have our trusty Miura workshop manual here, which you've had for a few years. We do replace them every so often, or we've got various copies of it here. But I've got the specifications of the crankshaft. So, I can tell straight away that I'd be gobsmacked if there's anything wrong with this crankshaft, because looking at the shell bearings, etc., they're all just beautiful. Let's see what the diameter of this is. It is 43.7 millimeters. Wow. Well, the specification is 43.354 to 43.604, so this is slightly oversized, interestingly. This can happen. The running clearance on these crankshafts is normally, and people ask for this to be nerdy, so nerdy it is, you're looking at a running clearance of about 1.5 to 2/1000 of an inch on these crankshafts when they're normally, let's just pick a journal. I will go through them all, but life's too short to do this while the cameras are running. And that is 63 millimeters. And again, that's slightly larger at 62.729 to 62.979. So whoever's ground this crank has just left it a tiny bit oversized, but it's standard. It's not been reground to a smaller size. That's fine. I can cope with that. We're sort of in range, really, which is great. And again, that's a sign that the engine has not been starved of oil. It's had decent oil in it all of its life, because particularly on engines like this with big carburetors that literally just throw fuel into the engine, the fuel can actually, if there's any hint of a misfire or running rich, it can actually break down the oil and cause hydrocarbons to unburnt fuel, etc., to come into the oil. One of the reasons why I thought this crankshaft was going to be all right, and as I say, we will measure it all, but I can tell by the looks of it that just needs a basic polish. It's fine. Are these bearings, which are 000, which means standard size, no 10 or 20 thou undersize or anything like that. And these are not Van der Velde. These would originally have been Van der Velde bearing shells. Doesn't matter. They're obviously the right ones that had been fitted last time the engine was rebuilt, which was quite a few miles ago by Miura standards. A Miura engine life expectancy can be as low as 25,000 miles, but this has lasted longer than that. but that's because, again, it's been sympathetically driven. But those bearing shells are in extremely good condition. They're just starting the tiniest bit of speckling there, which indicates that the shell is starting to just microscopically break up. So it would have gone on for many thousands of miles like that. Here we have a piston and connecting rod out of the Miura engine. Again, in lovely condition, absolutely beautiful this. The shell bearings are a model of what they should look like when they come apart. They're just very, in spite of, as I say, the bearing material being so soft, they're just hardly marked. This is the sign of an expertly maintained car. This is just wonderful. You don't often see cars like this with the best will in the world. They're not marked as such, but that looks like an original AE Borgo piston to me, or an exact copy thereof, probably from the 1980s, I would say. And again, we've been trying to chase the reason why this engine's been burning oil, and interestingly, again, just to digress for one moment, we have let's see, that is a compression piston ring which fits in the top two lands on the piston, and not normally, but quite more often than not, these are broken. They're actually broken into pieces when we take these engines apart. And what happens is it's due to overfueling or revving too much from cold. There is a thin layer of oil on the outside of this piston ring in the cylinder called a boundary layer, which allows them to glide over each other. Otherwise, they would just last no time at all. Again, the pistons, there's no wear on there. This funny staining is us cleaning it. It's the cleaning solution we use, but there's just nothing there. Tiniest bit of rocking on the gudgeon pin, on the wrist pin, on the connecting rod there. I'm exaggerating it, but just the tiniest bit, so we'll need to rebush those and have a look at the pins. But otherwise, great. The other interesting thing to mention, if we are getting nerdy, these are aluminium pistons, aluminum, across the Atlantic, and they have this casting witness mark inside, this ridge inside going all the way round. That is called a pyro strut. And what it is, it's a steel ring that the actual piston is cast around. It's inside the piston, or forged around. And what that does is, the running clearance on these engines for the pistons is 0.1 of a millimetre or 0.004 of an inch. Tiny, tiny, tiny. So if it's bigger than that, and I've seen Lamborghini engines at sort of 0.008 of an inch, 0.2 of a millimetre, I mean, there's tiny dimensions. Even with that, the piston moves, it rocks in the bore, and you get what's called piston slap. I'm exaggerating, but it's actually the piston knocking in the bore, and it sounds like a diesel, particularly from cold. The piston clearance is critical, and the pyro strut actually is a steel ring. It's there to strengthen the piston, but its main purpose in life is to stop the piston, the aluminium of the piston, expanding too much. Because aluminium has a higher coefficient of expansion than the cast iron liners that the actual cylinders that the pistons run in. So if you made the clearance correct or very small, as the engine warmed up, the piston would actually start to seize in its cylinder. So this pyro strut here is designed to absorb heat, but it's also designed to stop the piston expanding, almost bring its coefficient of expansion to the same as the cast iron cylinder liner it works in. Pyro struts were invented by an American in 1933. And they're, as I put it, one of those technological cul-de-sacs. They're sort of not used today, really. Just put the ring in there to try. Yeah, there is no wear in the piston lands, negligible wear. So those pistons will actually have them tested, but those pistons and con rods look absolutely beautiful. So what is it that's been causing this engine to burn oil? Well, We have here an oil scraper ring. So we've got the two compression rings on top of the piston, and then this oil control ring or scraper ring that goes underneath. And again, the land's in beautiful condition on that piston. There's no play there to speak of. The ring is actually an H section. It's got a garter spring that runs inside it. That actually sits inside the ring and keeps it pushed outwards against the bore. The actual profile of the piston ring is H section. And what's happened is that the outer lugs on the H, the bits that scrape against the bore, are actually worn away. They've worn over time. It's crucial that this is the correct profile, obviously. If it does start to wear, you get too much oil blow-by, as it's called, and then it gets past the rings and up into the combustion chamber, and that's when the engine starts to burn oil. These are not the worst I've seen by any stretch of the imagination. They're bad enough to cause a problem. One other area that there is actually wear, and this doesn't altogether surprise me, is the camshafts. These are going to, either we can have these reprofiled, or we're going to have to get a new set for it, which is not altogether a surprise. That one in particular has actually got a ridge on it. I can feel it with my finger. That is also quite worn, quite damaged. The surface is beginning to break up. So the cam spins, opens the valve and closes it again. Idling is not something the Miura was built to sit and do for a long time. So it's not surprising that these cams have taken a bit of a battering. We'll tickle up the bores, we'll do some honing and possibly some glaze busting, either or, depending on what we can do. The oil control rings on the pistons were worn. Instead of having prongs like that stick out and rub up against the cylinder walls, the prongs had worn flat because of wear and tear, which is quite normal. I've seen that happen on several cars before. And it meant that the oil was, too much oil was getting up into the combustion chamber, past the piston rings, and being burnt out, and hence blue smoke from the exhaust. We've completely sorted that problem out. All new parts fitted, etc. And there is no whiff of oil from the exhaust now, as you'd expect. We put a new silencer on the rear as well because it was ropey. We do have to pay attention to the manifolds, the rest of the system at some point. There's a couple of tiny little pinpricks that we need to weld up, and that's causing a bit of popping on the overrun, which it does. That's due to unburnt fuel coming out the combustion chambers when the throttles are closed in the carburetors, and the engine is sucking fuel in past, because there's a vacuum, past the throttle butterflies. It goes through the combustion chamber unburnt, because the throttles are closed, and it comes out to the hot exhaust, and that's where you get the popping on the overrun from. So I'm going to give this car a little run. It's tuned in magnificently. I'm very, very happy. We'll just do a final tweak here and there, and then we'll take the car for a run, and it's ready to go on its trailer to Bewley. This engine is minutes and hours old. So I am just nursing it. But I mean, everything's wonderful. The oil pressure is fantastic. It's exactly where it should be. The cooling system is behaving properly. I mean, it's great. And the engine is pulling cleanly from no revs to speak of. So obviously this engine is brand new. So I'm very interested in the feel of it and how it's performing on light throttles only. I have no interest. This is can't be taken up to the red line because I don't want to burn the rings or just set it off on the wrong foot. But it's lovely. It's obviously working on 12. The whole thing it's picking up cleanly. It's come together beautifully. Changing gear magnificently, as I shall now demonstrate. There we go. He says, oh well, we'll put that in the outtakes one day. But yeah, I mean, it's lovely. This car is because it's driven, as I mentioned earlier, the fact that this is probably the most driven Miura in the world, it does thousands of miles a year, it just feels well planted, well sorted. It's lovely, it really is. We'll just take the engine up to sort of 4,000 RPM. Yeah, it's all there. Yeah, lovely. Absolutely beautiful. Yeah, it's got running in oil in it to help the piston rings sink into the bores and all that to work properly. So this is a tick. This car's going to go out today. I'm very, very happy. And this car, with its freshly rebuilt engine and gearbox, will be in person, in the flesh, at the NEC Classic Car Show between Friday the 7th and Sunday the 9th of November. So next weekend, tickets can still be bought with a £2 discount from our code, which is my name, IAIN, Scottish Iain, and then the number 2, Iain 2, IAIN 2. Look forward to seeing you there.